existence, maybe. And
Hello and welcome to Speaking Spirit, where we talk about all things spiritual. Your host, John Moore, is a shamanic practitioner and spiritual teacher. And now, here's John.
Hello, everybody. It's been a little while. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I have a very, very special episode today. I should probably do this more, but I don't actually have a lot of guests on my show, but I'm very excited to bring a guest on for you today because she I don't know how I'll say this, but she does a different thing than I do. And I think that is where a lot of the interesting stuff happens, right? A lot of the, I'm fascinated with what she does, but I'm not going to delay. I'm just going to introduce her and bring her on and start talking to her because I've got lots of questions, and I'm sure this will be a fascinating episode for you all. So my guest today is Veronica Drake, and she is a dynamic, internationally recognized spiritual, intuitive, and psychic medium, and we're going to talk about what that is. She's a sought-after keynote and motivational speaker, and a frequent radio and podcast guest, which I'm lucky to have her. Her down-to-earth, relatable approach is a magnet for people of all ages and places. She has been called a life changer, a guardian angel, and a cheerleader rolled into one. She's a coach, intuitive, and magician. And without, I don't want to give too much away because I want to hear from her. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, John.
Good
morning, world.
Good morning, world. We are both, but you can't see us, but we're both drinking coffee this morning. So already we're fast friends.
Cheers.
We're sharing cheers. Yeah, we're sharing a coffee. So, Veronica, I know some people call you V. Do you prefer if I call you Veronica or V, or you don't have a preference?
Whatever you're comfortable with. I've been called V since I was 11 years old. And so just naturally, it just is a progression into my business world, but whatever you're comfortable with.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, maybe I'll call you V. That's shorter. less syllables for me.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, I don't know if people probably have some idea of what a psychic medium is, from TV shows or whatever, but I want to hear from somebody who is a psychic medium, which is you. What is a psychic medium? How would you describe that I am asking if somebody asks, but I am asking, what is a psychic medium? What do psychic mediums do?
Well, maybe I should start by saying what psychic medium is not. We're not carnival workers. Well, At least I'm not a carnival worker. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't predict the future. What I do is offer insight based on your energy, your vibration, what's happening in your life at the moment. And psychic and medium are two different things, but they actually go hand in hand. And the psychic part of me taps into what's happening in your life, what potentials are out there, perhaps what you're missing, what you're not seeing. And the medium part of me, the mediumship part, is me offering guidance, insight, messages from the other side, from deceased loved ones. There's a distinction that I'd like to clarify there.
Yeah, thank you for that. I have a couple of very dear friends who are mediums, and they're both just fantastic people to talk to, and very funny, and and I don't know if you've had this similar experience, but they came to a training that I was giving, but we were in the same training together. And they showed up and they're like, my mother was in the back seat the whole ride here telling me to pay it, watch the road. And the other woman is like, yeah, I kept hearing her too. And, all of this stuff. Do you have those kinds of experiences where spirit sort of jumps in when it's not expected? Or is it a little bit more like I'm specifically sitting down to communicate with spirit?
Well, it's a little bit of both, but quite honestly, I didn't sign up for any of this. Mm-hmm. I, quote unquote, and this is a loose term, am very normal. And, normal's all relative. But I grew up in a very dysfunctional way and just had no direction of anything. And when I was 25 years old, I was pregnant with my second son, and I lost my beloved grandfather. He and my grandmother had basically raised me. I was very, very close to them and just was devastated when I lost him, and can remember sitting wide awake on my couch, just bawling hysterically, and wide awake, again, emphasizing wide awake. And he came to me and I had no anything prior to that. He had just come to me, stood right in front of me. I saw him as he was about 20, 21, 22 years old. He served in World War II. He had his uniform on, his hat. And I heard his voice, say, I'm okay. I'm okay. You need to take care of that little boy in you. Now, it was 1987. We didn't know it was going to be a little boy. Mm-hmm. Lo and behold, a couple months later, I gave birth to a healthy 9-pound baby boy. So, that was my first introduction to mediumship. Didn't know anything about it. Had no clue what it was. But that was my introduction to it. And so now I'm very protective of my energy and my time. So, if I were to go into, let's say, the mall or sit at the park and just kind of let it free reign, I'd be categorized as perhaps, mentally unstable. So I have learned just instinctively when I'm going to do it and when I'm not going to do it. And I think important.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I discovered really early on in my spiritual practice, and the mall is a really great example of this, right? Because you're surrounded by all kinds of people, all kinds of energy, not all of it happy, not all of it, uplifted. Particularly in holidays, there's lots of, hurriedness and rampant consumerism and all of this stuff. And I just found myself getting just completely overwhelmed frequently. And it wasn't until I learned how to go, okay, I gotta, in these situations, I have to pull it back. I have to shield myself a little bit from this. And I think I never considered myself particularly psychic or sensitive or clairvoyant or anything like that. But then when I started doing the work that I do, it opened the faucet up.
It found you, right? It found it being something bigger than we are.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I just say spirit because it's this kind of catch-all term that is, includes it all, basically. Great. And so after that happened, did you then go, sort of say, I got to figure out what this is. Did it take you time? How did you get to the point where you are now, where you're seeing people and helping people and that sort of thing?
So that was 1987. Of course, that was March of 87. I gave birth to my second son in May of 87. I had a 3-year-old, a newborn. Needless to say, life was busy. Yeah. Never really thought too much about it. Mm-hmm. I will say, as you probably know, we all hit a wall. We all hit a spiral. We all hit a pocket in our life where we just kind of, for lack of a better word, we don't know what to do. We don't know where to go. And so Fast forward, 87, it came to 1996. I had just gotten along in my life. I was in hindsight now, this is all in hindsight, I came from a very dysfunctional background. There was a lot of alcoholism and mental illness, and it was about survival for me. And so I made a lot of bad decisions in my life, meaning I hurt a lot of people. And in 1996, I had everything outwardly, 2 kids, great husband, everything was flowing, everything was going, and I was making really poor choices. And in November of 96, I said, that's it. I don't want to live anymore. And I went to crash my car into the side of a bridge, and my foot was on the accelerator. I had full intent. And my car filled up with this incredible, all I can say is warmth. And I just had to squeeze my shoulders together. That's how full the car felt. And I felt my foot be pulled off the accelerator. And I heard, we've got you. We've got you. And really, I will say 1996, that episode, that event was what really catapulted me into this way of life, this spiritual existence.
Yeah, I have a very, very similar experience. I have a very similar story to that. I was definitely about to take my life and was stopped by Spirit. And if anybody has been through that, there's no denying that that's what's going on. There's no denying, like, you are physically moved by somebody. Like, it's as if there were a physical person sitting next to you, grabbing your body and preventing you from doing what you're about to do. And there's absolutely no denying that's not, while we are all connected and we are connected to Spirit and everything, it's not like a subconscious part of yourself. It's very clear that this is another spirit stepping in for a very good reason, because you have stuff to do here. You're important. You have things to do. And I just, I actually read that story a little bit, and hearing it from you, it's even more impactful. And that our stories are so similar. Mine was much later than the late 90s, but I don't know. I waited much longer in my life to sort of wake up. But I sort of think of that as an initiation. I don't know if you think of it in the same way or use the same term, but I absolutely think of that as my initiation into Spirit.
Absolutely. But let me be clear and say, I was a little sick. I didn't really know what to do with that. Sure. I had no background in any religion or spirituality. I had nothing. And so what I did was kind of look at the masses around me, which I think a lot of us do. And what I went conventional Christianity, which, listen, hear me say, nothing wrong with Christianity. Nothing. I believe and respect all religions. We all go the same path, right? But I went down full blown Christianity, and I got a bit indignant. Mm-hmm. Jesus said and God said, and let's go to the top. I became a televangelist of sorts. And
Gotcha.
And I say that with all love and respect, but I didn't like that person that I was. And I'm like, geez, I'm right back here again. There's got to be more. And I found my early mentor, because I'm old. I'm going to be 60, right? So
I don't think that's old, by the way. My grandmother's about to turn 106, so she's still. I know, right?
That's my prayer. Okay,
it's all relative. It's all relative.
It's all relative. So in the early to late 90s, like, there were books, right? Mm-hmm. We couldn't press in Google and
right.
So I had a lot of introspective time. I created a sacred corner, all with knowing within me. And I found my mentor, Wayne Dyer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the highlight of my life was meeting that man and kissing his bald head. I mean, mm-hmm. there's a story, but so it was an evolution of sorts, but definitely an initiation, definitely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wasn't aware you worked with Wayne Dyer. I'm a huge fan of his, and correct me if I'm wrong, he passed a few years ago, not that long ago, but what a body of work he left behind. Just prolific and loving soul that he was and is still. We often speak of people who have passed in the past tense, but as a medium, you know that they are not past tense.
Nope, not at all.
And I should point out, you might see like there's a couple of objects behind me. So this is my ancestor altar that's behind me. And the thing I'm pointing at is actually a silver water kettle that was my grandmother's grandmother's. So it's been passed from my family, and then I have photos of my family there and from the 1800s and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, I got chills.
And I always tell people, because I talk about ancestors a lot and that sort of thing. I'm like, it's a great idea to have an ancestor altar. I think it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing to communicate with your ancestors. Don't put it in your bedroom, because they're going to keep you awake all night. They're gonna, hey, let's party. Let's do this.
Sure.
Yeah. So mine's in the center of my home. It's not in my bedroom's upstairs and away from that. I love my ancestors. I absolutely talk to them every day. I give them gifts and do all of those things. But it's a little bit like Grand Central Station sometimes over here. So
absolutely. Well, you can see behind me, I have my drum. I have my client actually gave me a drum, sent me a drum. I have
Beautiful
the wind, the dream catcher that someone made me. I have paintings, owl paintings that people gifted me with spirit animals, and all of these things are alive. All of these things, have meaning in life, and they all contain energy. Right? So they feel. In psychic world, we call touching an object, like such as what you pointed out, psychometry. So what I could do is touch that and get a feeling for the energy around it. That would be different than me, let's say, connecting to great grandma.
Gotcha.
There's a distinct difference.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, and I remember years ago when I was doing my shamanic training, I went to go do a workshop with an indigenous woman who is a drum maker, and I made a hide drum, and everything about it, about making it was a beautiful experience. If anybody, I don't think you have to be a shamanic practitioner at all to make a frame drum, but go to somebody who is doing it in a sacred way, and you honor everything. So it's a hide drum. So the surface of the drum is the skin of an animal that passed, and we journeyed to the animal and honored the animal that passed. And the hoop is made out of wood, so that's a tree that had to be cut down. So we journey to that, and you imbue the drum with the energy of your heart. And so you're absolutely right. There is a living energy to all of this, and you can feel it. Someone who's very sensitive like you, I'm sure, would get a ton of stuff, but even people who don't consider themselves particularly sensitive, like me, I can feel that stuff when I pick it up. Like, it's imbued. It's
palpable. It really is. And also you can see on my table, I don't know if you can see this, but I have elements. I have pieces of sticks. These little things here, and they're shark's teeth that I've collected.
Oh, okay.
So we have shark's teeth, we have shells, everything. This is my little altar. And then over here I have rocks, the element, and angels. And, so I got to be honest and tell you, when I first got into doing this, I really went hard and fast against, I'm not woo-woo. And my tagline might have been, I don't shrink heads or boil chicken bones. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but now, I'm all about learning, evolving. And while I'm not woo-woo, I do believe that there is value in everything. And that if I want to, kind of say a ceremony or pray to the shark's teeth or talk to the energy of the, I'm okay with that, And, I think the older you get, at least for me, the more confident you get, the more, the easier it is to be your true self, is what I found.
Yeah. You stop, in my experience, it's funny. I have 15-year-old daughters. They're twin daughters, and they'll always, they're like, do you want to dance in our TikTok video? I'm not a dancer. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if people can tell by looking at me, but I've never taken a dance lesson in my life. And I always say yes. And they're like, my friends love you because you always do this stuff. I'm like, I have no sense of shame. Like, that's it. I don't care if somebody thinks I look dumb. I don't care. And part of that is I'm just like, I'm having fun with my daughters. And the same is true with my spirituality. I don't care if you don't believe the same thing that I believe, and I'm fine with whatever you believe. But I'm going to be true to myself. I'm going to do the rituals that I do. I'm going to do the ceremony that I do. I'm going to practice in the way that I practice. And I don't insist that anybody else do things my way. Right. So
and I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm not here to make you believe anything. I'm just me doing me, Right. And I think, if somebody were on the fence, belief wise, and were to talk to you, for example, I think they would very quickly hop over that fence. My experience, and sometimes like when I'm working, and I work in journey, so I work in altered state most of the time. Sometimes stuff comes through that cannot possibly be coming from me, right? There's stuff that I tell my clients that it's coming from their grandmother or coming from whoever who passed away, that there is no chance on this earth of me knowing or gathering that information. And it surprises me sometimes when that stuff comes through. It's nice, it's nice when it happens that way for me, where I'm like, okay, yep, I'm on, I'm following the right thing here, and it happens more and more as I go on. And I have a student I met with just Sunday morning, as a matter of fact, and she said, I'm starting to, I did this ceremony for this person, and even before I got into this healing ceremony, like I started getting flashes of, the trauma that they had experienced that I was working on. I'm like, yeah, it's going to happen more and more as you practice. It just opens you wide. We are most comfortable, I think, with titles and labels.
Yeah.
Because then our human brain can wrap around and say, oh, I can get that. When you try to explain exactly what's happening as a medium, we don't have any reference in our humanity to say, so I'm very clear to my clients to say, I'm humanizing this by saying, okay, you go to the white light, you stand at a table, there's a line, they check your name off, and you go, I'm really good at it. Well, Spirit's really good at using me as the communicator for humanizing it. But with, my journey into shamanism looks like this. Again, going about my business, being a psychic medium. And all of a sudden I get on a phone call with a client, and she's talking about shamanic stuff. And I was remembering. I was like, oh, I didn't say anything on the phone call, but we hung up, and afterwards I sat down, and this very prolific line of stuff came out of me. And it came to me, I wasn't a shaman, but I, in a past life, was a medicine woman. So I go, what am I going to do with that? And Spirit says to me, it's just in your repertoire. It's just what you're going to do. It's, it doesn't belong necessarily under one category or another. Like I talked earlier to you coming on here, I work with tarot. I work with mediumship. I work with angels. It's just a knowing. I'm the conduit. Right.
And there are tools, and I think most people, or many people get this, but there are tools like tarot, right? And when you are reading tarot cards, it's not so much that there's magic in the cards, although as you use the cards, they start to get imbued with your energy. But a brand new like somebody who's good at reading tarot can open up a brand new deck and do a very insightful reading. These are just tools. These are just ways to bring things up, tools for communication. It's the it's the person sitting across from you who's acting as a conduit, and the information is coming through from spirit. And we talked before this that my girlfriend is a very gifted tarot reader, and she'd been doing readings well before we met. And then when we met, she's like, "Oh, you practice shamanism? I'm really, that's really cool. Let me." And I knew off the bat, when she started working with me, that she was going to be a natural. She already had it. She was already there. Mm-hmm. And so shamanism for her is just another tool. Again, it's just another modality that she's working with. But she is able to channel and harness and be the conduit. In shamanism, we have the phrase is be the hollow bone, right? Be the bone that spirit passes through, able to get out of the way for spirit to work through us.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny because I have always just seen myself as the communicator. I laugh because I tell people always come to me and they say, "What's my purpose? Why am I here?" And my answer to that is, your purpose is found in your naturalness, who you naturally are, right? So I go all the way back to birth. And my story in my family is I started talking at 9 months old and I haven't shut up since. Detention. I was the kid sitting in the corner that couldn't sit by their friends because I would, right?
Yeah,
I would get everybody in trouble. Well, the joke's on you because it's how I make my living. I get So embrace who you are naturally. Don't run from it. Don't, because society wants to say, well, here's a box. You better get in it. And if you don't fit in it, cram yourself in it.
And and nobody fits in a box. Literally nobody fits in that box perfectly. Yeah. And
you know what I just saw? I'm wearing the box with my arms cut out the side. I'm not doing that.
Like the Halloween costume, right? When we were kids. Yeah. It's very funny. My mom will tell you, when she went in for parent teacher conferences when I was, I don't know, elementary school, and the teacher's like, John's a very good student. He's very smart, but you see that desk over there in the corner?
We would have been friends.
Yeah. We would have been separated in school for sure, though. We would have been. But yeah, I'm a talker, and but you touched on something that's really, really important to me, and has become really, if I were to boil my life's mission down, and I haven't done a really good job at putting words around this yet, but it is really about being part of being support for people to be who they are, whatever that is, without judgment, without telling people who they need to be. People will, I have students all over the world, and sometimes they'll come to me and they'll say, "Oh, I had this really weird dream or I had this really weird journey. Can you tell me what that means?" And I said, "Well, I could do the work and tell you what that means, but you're going to do the work, because I'm disempowering you by taking that away from you. I'm disempowering you by telling you what you need to do with that. Like, I'll help you as a student." It's different with clients because clients don't have the training, and so I'm going to help them in that way. But when I teach people, I'm like, I am not going to give you any answers. I'm going to give you some experiences, and I'm going to show you how to get your own answers. But I am also a little bit like that with my clients, and really supporting them to be whoever they are, to step out if that's what it means. Some people don't want to step out into the I'm, and I have to hold myself back because I'm like, oh, you got to get out there and be in front of audiences. And some people are like, oh, hold on, I'm an introvert. That's not my thing. And I'm like, okay, all right, that's cool too, if that's your thing, if that's your thing. But if you've got a gift, share it in whatever way that makes sense for you. The world will be a better place with more art and more spirit and more music and more people who love to cook, or it doesn't matter what it is, whatever you love to do, to be, however you love to show up, fill the world with that love, and we'll all be better for it.
Well, and people, if I had to give you the number one question I get asked during every reading, without exception, what's my purpose? Why am I here?
Yeah.
And so my answer to that is always, it's kind of generic in the sense that that's not a question that's answered by where you go to work or, what you produce, at your work, or how degreed you are, or what car you drive, or how much money you have. The soul, as I understand it, the soul comes in, and I use very human terms. So I'm not going to fancy glancy it up and, I don't use esoteric terms. The soul comes in with its agenda, its mission, its purpose, right? It very distinctly understands why it chose this demographic, why it chose this geographical region. It knows all of that. And the human, right? Right? The human, why is this happening to me? And then Grandpa Joe tells you, don't like these people, and then be on the lookout for these people, and be skeptical, and, oh, you're going to fail if you do, right? We're conditioned. We have all this heaviness on us.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was just sitting down this morning, and I know I'm going to jump all over the place, but I was sitting down this morning, and as I do every morning, and I talk to spirit, and I'm ready. I got my pen poised, and I'm doing a psychic development academy I'm going to be launching in September. And I said, well, spirit guide, communication, help me, however I'm saying it. And, talking to spirit is like an equivalent to a child learning to walk. No one can tell that child how to walk. I mean, you have kids, did you, come on now, Susie, pick your foot up. Like, no one does that. Like, where does the kid know? It's inherent.
Right.
The kid, right? What do we do? Oh, look at, she's picking her head up. She's a month old. What do we do? Right? That's a natural milestone in that child's life. Then the child goes and, stands up. Boom, the child falls down. The child doesn't go, oh, I'm not going to do this anymore. This is too hard. No, because there's no conditioning. So when we're learning to speak with spirit, everybody wants to know, V, tell me how to do it. Tell me how. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
Right.
I can help you with some benchmarks and some guidelines, but I can't tell you how to do that for you. You got to get up, pick your foot up, fall down, and then try again. And so my approach to teaching this is, let's rely on what's inherent in you. You're programmed. I believe the soul is a spark of what created us.
100%. It's funny.
So,
we talk about things in very, very similar terms and have a very, I always say that. I would say that what the inner part of us is a spark. I'll say divinity. I realize that might be a spiritual term. We can call it source. We can call it creator. You could call it God, whatever name you want to label, you want to put on it. But absolutely 100%. And I have experienced that firsthand, and it is incredibly powerful when you get in touch with that. But I often say with my students that, look, I don't want to be anybody's guru. That's too much responsibility for me. That's too much.
No. Walk next to me, because sometimes I don't know where the hell I'm going. So just follow me.
Right. I'm a guide. I'm going to, I've been to some places you haven't that I can show you around.
Sure.
But, what you do there is up to you. Right? And that's it. And I'm not going to tell you what you need to do with your life. I'm not going to tell you. And if Spirit tells you this John guy doesn't know what he's talking about, do it differently, then listen to them. Spirit always takes precedence over me. What do I know?
Of course. It's funny because I've been doing this work so long, and I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of testimonials, right? Oh, V is so, she's the, and every time one comes in, I'm like, oh, geez, that's like, I don't really, but the business world, it's what we do. But, you get that one person that comes in, or two people, and they're like, well, she's a fraud, and she's a, and we get them. We do, and right away, there's that like plunging knife in. And what's interesting to me is no matter how advanced or how developed, quote unquote, we are, I always have that retaliatory energy that wants to come back at you and say, well, I have 1,000 reviews that says you're the only one.
Right.
But then I go like this. Okay, there is my special teacher of the day.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I got this from a student of another teacher. I should say, so I didn't come up with this phrase. I'm stealing it completely. I'm admitting to stealing this phrase. We were talking about being triggered, right? Which is that experience of, oh, how dare this, or just having this, and how triggers are pointers to our wounds, our inner wounds. And, his teacher said to me, instead of wounds, I like to use the word teacher. I'm like, oh yeah. And her student, I could tell Spirit was speaking through him, just said, yeah, so these triggers, they're breadcrumbs from your teacher. And I was like, blew my mind. I'm like, okay, first of all, I'm going to steal that phrase. And someday I may write a book called Breadcrumbs from the Teacher, but I will give you full credit and, split the profits or something with you at that point. I don't even care. I don't care. I wouldn't be writing it for profit anyway. I'd just be writing it to share information. But Breadcrumbs from the Teacher, what a beautiful phrase. And when stuff like that comes out of people, that's this guy was so his teacher and I are partnered in the shamanic community, and she's like, yeah, this guy, the first time he came to me, I knew like he was kind of on it. So, and I've had lots of conversations with him, and he.
Don't you find too that the simplest things are the most profound?
For sure, absolutely.
Simplicity. There's so much profoundness in. I mean, really, and I say this in all earnest, in all sincerity. Watch the grass. Watch the grass. And I get chills when I say this, because a blade of grass, to sit and watch as it just is, right? It's how it's nurtured and how secure it is and how the wind will, move it, or the footprint, or but watch the grass, watch the trees. I can see the trees swaying. It's a beautiful day here in Pennsylvania. The air is, I can see the clouds floating by. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
No. There's a story about the Buddha, actually, where I think this happened in Deer Park, where he was preaching with the people who were following him, and one day he just came in and picked up a flower and just sat there and held it and said nothing. And one of his students, I forget which one, people who are scholars of Buddhism would know which one it was. He was one of the arhats, one of his famous followers, got it and was almost instantaneously enlightened, like full on, reached enlightenment from getting it. And absolutely, people, I think, are frequently looking for these. And I'm a fan. I have, in case you couldn't tell, I have ADD, and I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of complexity and making things more complex than they have to be. But that's a really good reminder that a blade, if you look at the billions and trillions of blades of grass out there, but you can find just one and just look at it. Focus. That alone can be an enlightening experience. And then you recognize just what a miracle it is to have this consciousness, to have that we exist at all, that the world exists, that the universe exists, to give us, infinite opportunities to reach and touch spirit in that way.
It blows my mind that, an egg and a sperm, and then voila. I know I'm going to be 60 and I'm still blown away by that concept, of life. It's miraculous. I was reading an article, and I'm very naive, and I'm very childlike in the sense I don't ever offend people. My husband says to me, "You can ask anybody anything," and because I have an air of innocence about me. I'm not asking you about your sexuality because I want to condemn you. I really want to understand your perspective. So I'm reading this article, and I was in a forum, typing, and you'll often see the word God, or G-D, and they won't put the O in it. And so here's me going, why don't they put the O in God? Like, why do we, and someone in the forum says, because it's offensive to some people. And I said, well, it's just a word.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. Like, I'm all about exploring deeper and looking about why are you triggered by a word? Right? So I can call it God. You can call it source, divinity. I don't care what you call it. At the end of the day, it's an energy.
Right. And I think that, I don't know for sure. I don't know why spelling the word God out, it has the same root as the word good, which, whatever, is offensive to some people, other than I know that there are ineffable names of God that comes from Hebrew that, only the priest of the inner sanctum of the temple, back when there was a temple, could speak once a year or something like that. So there was some ceremony, there was some ritual, but it wasn't, I'm pretty sure it wasn't God that this person was speaking, whatever it was. And interestingly, he would go in once a year and put his hands on the Ark of the Covenant when it was still in the, people have seen Raiders of the Lost Ark. And people have looked at, because I'm going off on a complete tangent here, but this is my ADD. The Ark of the Covenant, if you were to build it today exactly as designed, in the Bible, it says, take this type of wood and put gold on the inside, gold on the outside, and put it on top, and do this and do that. If you were to do that, it would be a gigantic capacitor, an electrical capacitor. And so what would happen from time to time is when the one priest who was allowed into the inner sanctum where the ark was, would go in, and they would have to tie a rope to his ankle, because very frequently, once a year, they would touch this and sometimes explode. And they would have to pull his body out with a rope because nobody else was allowed in. And it's theorized that there was, this thing was gathering an electrical charge for an entire year, and then this priest would go in to do this, whatever the ceremony was, and put his hands on it, and of course the electricity would discharge through him like lightning. And if you read the stories about the ark, they carried it into battle, and it cast lightning and all of these things, and then you look at the plans, if you're a nerd like me, and say, oh, that's a giant capacitor. And that's not taking anything away from the sacred nature of this object, because I think electricity is a pretty miraculous thing. We can sort of explain it scientifically, but not completely. But the fact that it exists at all is pretty darn miraculous.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
And it allows us to have this conversation. You're in Pennsylvania, I'm in Maine, and then people, and I know I look at the statistics on this podcast. I have listeners in India, in Norway, all over the U.S., all over Canada, all over Europe, in Africa.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, I love that. I love, some people say that technology dehumanizes us, and it can. There's a lot of grossness on social media and stuff, but without technology, we wouldn't have met. Probably. No. We wouldn't be able to have this conversation. People wouldn't be able to tune in and hear about this stuff. And so, again, it's a tool. It's a tool, and it's all in how you use it, right?
Absolutely. It really is a small world. When I talk to a client in Norway or Singapore or Ireland or, all over the world, there's a commonality to all of us. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't, it's like, wow, it just blows my mind how similar we all are.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all human. We have different cultures, we have different languages and different upbringing, but underneath it all, we're all the same. And, every genuine spiritual teaching teaches that we're all brothers and sisters. Yeah. I think it's a perversion of spiritual idea to separate people the way that they have, and definitely to justify that using any sort of religion or doctrine or anything to say, we're good and those people are bad. That's basically what
Well, I get the theory there is divide and conquer. We
Yeah.
have an agenda. We have a mission,
Yeah.
We'll divide you and we'll conquer, and then we'll divide you again and we'll conquer more. And then we'll have the whole, there's like all of this going on. But, we're human, and we must live in a world of duality. There has to be, if there's good, there's bad. Like, we have to experience duality. The other thing is, people always say to me, well, the ascension's coming, and how do I ascend? And here's what Spirit told me about the ascension. The ascension is a very personal thing that happens within you.
Right.
And I teach my clients, if you want to ascend, use your bottom 3 chakras, work through your stuff, and ascend. I mean, it can be that simple.
I think, I think people have these, I don't know, from movies or where they get these ideas from, that you're going to I know people believe this, that you're physically going to get sucked up into the clouds somewhere or something like that, where it's really about turning inward as opposed to looking upward. I don't know yet if I'm a fan of the word ascension, because I think I think it can be misleading like that. I don't have any problem with people who are trying to quote unquote ascend or whatever. That's not it. It's the word, I think, is misleading, that people think that it's a raising up rather than a turning in.
Somewhere to go.
Yeah, somewhere to go. Your divinity is here. You can't get rid of it. If you were to get rid of it, you would cease to exist. So you have it within you right now. And that, there's that teaching as well that runs through spiritual systems. Sometimes it's hidden because it's esoteric, and sometimes it's out in the open. In Buddhism, they believe that everybody is a Buddha already. It's just a matter of getting rid of the stuff that isn't.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of it. And that's enlightenment or ascension or whatever word we want to put it. I got to come up with a better word, I think. I don't know.
No, really. Let me know when you do. And I think that, we get so, as the human race, we get so distracted with words and titles. And, my clients will come to me and they'll say, well, what about this 5D? And I'll be like, well, I don't know what that is. What is 5D?
Right.
We're in 3D now, but then we're going to 4D. I can't help you with that. I don't work on that language. I don't know it.
Yeah, I don't know it either, so I won't claim to know it, but I do know it's a term that I've heard out there, and relatively recently, like just in the past couple of years, that term has come out. So. There's an element to spirituality where people are trying to come up with new stuff because they haven't been satisfied with what they've found so far or something, which is fine. And that's okay. Do your own thing, find your own thing. But people have been doing this work since there have been people. And so there isn't necessarily a need to make up something new to quote unquote ascend or go, travel to other dimensions. You can do that right this moment without, any new terminology, technology, or anything. I
mean, shamanism, 100,000 years old and
At
whatever,
least.
and
we think it may actually predate modern humans. So it may actually be older than 100,000 years because they found evidence in a cave that, in Kesem Cave in Israel, that's 300,000 or 400,000 years old. So that's not even Homo sapiens at that point. So as long as there have been people capable of symbolic thought, we've been talking to spirit, and so everybody has that innate ability anyway.
Well, I have to tell you, because my husband is Catholic. This is my second marriage, and we've been together 20 some years, and he's Catholic. And for us we got married civilly, right? So we went to the courthouse, whatever, we got married. And he really, I respect and honor his religion, and he wanted to become married Catholic. And so I went through the tradition of, well, I won't go into the tradition, but ABC, XYZ,
right, all
that. And we got married through the Catholic Church. And I had the priest over one day for dinner, and we were talking, and I just said, you know what? I'm just going to tell the priest what I do. because it goes along that vein of if I try to hide something, I'm not being true to who I am. I can't do the work I came here to do. So I said to the priest, because I'm one of the things, I'm really funny. I get that. Right? Yeah. You too, right?
Yeah.
We're really. So I said to the priest, I said, did you bring your holy water with you? And he looks at me. He says, what? You're probably going to want to douse me in it when I tell you what I do. And I said, I just know things. I can look at people. I can feel things about them. I can know things about them. And I'm talking and he's not saying anything. And he sips his coffee and he puts his coffee down. He says, well, that's your gift from God.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I said, well, all right, then, there was some validity, but can I tell a quick story about
Absolutely.
This gift from God?
Yeah, please do.
My son was in pharmacy school in Florida. I live in Pennsylvania. It was his graduation. The only flight down was late at night. My husband couldn't go, so I took a late night flight from Pennsylvania to Florida. I get on the plane. I'm traveling alone. I get on the plane. I sit down. I got the aisle seat, and this guy comes on the plane, and I thought, oh, he looks interesting, and I could pick a vibe up, right? And I look. Now, this is me. I like his shoes. He has really nice shoes, Hopefully, maybe he'll sit across from me and we'll have good conversation. Let him sit across from me. So he sits the other aisle seat across from me. And we're talking and, just he's very interesting. And he's got 3 businesses and we're going back and forth. And he says, the flight attendant comes down and she says, would you like a cocktail? And I, no, I'm good. And he says, let me buy you a drink. No, I'm good. 3-4 times he would not take. I said, no, I'm good. You're not buying me a drink. He wouldn't stop. I looked at him, honest to God, I looked at him right. And it just came out of my mouth before I knew. How many times have you been in jail? Mm-hmm. And now by outwardly appearances, prim and proper, great Italian leather shoes, didn't look like he was in jail. How many times have you been in jail? He looked at me and he said 3. He turned his head forward, never said another word to me. We're getting off the flight. And he said to me, how did you know? And I said, I just know things.
Yeah.
And it's like that. Like you just know things. You don't know why you know it. You just know it. But it protected me.
Right. Right.
Got me out of that situation. So trust that little boy.
Yeah, absolutely. So interestingly, I have a little story as well. It was sort of a similar vein. So it was just last week, as a matter of fact, I was leading a journey circle over Zoom. So there were some people journeying, and when I lead, I don't journey with them. I just make sure everybody's all set, and I play music and all of these things. So immediately I put the music on and people are journeying. And for those of you who don't know, it means going into an altered state and traveling in spirit form and working with spirit. It's what shamans do. And so the second they start journeying, I get this really weird picture in my head. And fortunately I had a pad of paper next to me and I just grabbed it and I just started drawing, and it was sort of like this conch shell looking thing with a flame coming out of the top. And I'm like, well, that's really interesting, but the vision was really strong, and so I put it down, and then after the journey, which is about 20 minutes long, I'm like, okay, who wants to share? And this woman started to share, I had this really weird thing. It was like a whirlwind in the water with a fire coming out of the top. And I'm like, hold on, I gotta show you something. And I held up the thing that I had drawn, and she kind of lost her wits a little bit. She's like, how did you do that? You're a wizard. You're blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no. I'm like, it just came through. It just happened. It's, and I knew there's a moment that, okay, this is information that needs to come out, or I need to trust it, or I need to draw it, or something along those lines. But it was really funny. And then she emailed me again the next day, and she's like, I'm still reeling about what you drew last night, and I should probably mail her the drawing or something. I mean, it's not a fantastic work of art. It's just a really quick sketch of what I saw, and I didn't quite understand what it was when I saw it. But then when she described it, it was exactly, and it was a weird combination of objects as well. So it wasn't something that would have likely been something for me to draw. Well,
when I read for clients, it never means anything to me because it's not supposed to. And I can't censor the message, and I just bring the message forward. As I said, in September, I'm starting my Psychic Development Academy, and teaching psychic development, intuitive development, I use them synonymously, is kind of like trying to tell a 2-year-old what to do. I don't want to do it. Intuition is going to happen. Right? It's going to take its own course. Like the 2-year-old who wants to get dressed by himself, he's just going to go at it. And intuition is just going to flow out of us. It's going to do its thing. Our job is to create an awareness. Create a space of awareness so that when we get that subtle nudge, because the other question I get is people will say to me, how do I know if it's my intuition or if it's my own thought? Intuition will never beat you over the head. It's going to be think about the quietest, I'm old enough to remember the low talkers on Saturday Night Live.
Right.
They would go like this and versus the loudettes, right? So the low talker was Seinfeld.
Yes,
when,
you're right.
We would get next to Seinfeld, right?
You're right.
And so intuition is like the low talker. It's very subtle, it's very calming, and it's out of the blue, like, oh, I never would have thought of that. Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
Where your own ego, your own critical mind replays, and it really only has a built-in loop that you've created. So it's going to be familiar to you.
Right. That's, that's a big distinction for me. When I get information that I'm like, it's quite clear that it's not coming from me. When it's on, and like that image that I got the other night, and it was a really quick, you're right, it was quiet. It was a really quick flash, but I knew, I'm like, that's really strange. I'm going to draw that before I forget it. And, very frequently with clients, very much the same. I just get information. I'm like, I'm just going to deliver this to you. Because if I interpret it, then I'm putting my human expectations, experiences, prejudices, all of that stuff on top of it. And it's going to be less meaningful at that point. So let's, I want to get into this. I want to hear about your Psychic Development Academy. That sounds fascinating to me. You said starting in September.
The end of September. Yep. It means a lot to me to help people to develop with integrity and compassion and discernment. And so I want to teach in a way that honors those traits, those qualities, right? Mm-hmm. And I want to humanize psychic development. And I want to put a spin on it that is very normal. And, if somebody's born without sight, we accept that. But, sight is part of who we are. And we just go, oh, they don't have sight. But nobody is born without psychic ability. No one.
Right.
And that's a direct to me in meditation from source. Nobody's born without it. And so if I can help you, I just saw an image in my head now. It's like that silver pot behind you. You don't know the luster it has until you work at it, until you clean it, and you can truly see the luster and the brilliance of it. I take psychic ability and I show you how to buff it out, how to bring it to fruition in a way that's helpful and useful to people. I'm not a predictive psychic. I have what to expect when you come for a psychic reading with me. I'm not going to tell you the future. I'm not going to tell you your soulmate. It's not that. I probably am more like a psychic or intuitive coach. I'm going to be conversational with you. And this is the techniques that I'll be teaching in the Psychic Development Academy.
Wonderful. And, I'm sure there are going to be listeners out there who want to check that out, potentially sign up for that. Should they go to your website, or will there be something separate for that? How would they find out more about that?
I'm in the process of fine-tuning some things on my website. So if you go there right now, the program that is available is called Going Within. Mm-hmm. And the reason I created Going Within was because I believe all transformation happens from within. So whether you're looking to get a different job, whether you're looking to step up your own intuition, whether you're looking to forgive someone, it all starts from within. So going within is my membership, and it's very eclectic, and it's a lot like me. It's all over the place. One day, 1 week we're going to learn this, and the next week we're going to learn this, but then I'm going to show you how to use it in practical reality. Not just give you some esoteric, here it is. I'm going to show you how to use it in your everyday life. So I'm really proud of going within.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Because I think, I love to read about really sort of highfalutin esoteric things and stuff, but there's an expression in shamanism, but does it grow corn? Right? Which is the whole thing of, okay, now I've read about these, histories and all of these things, but really I still have to live my life, and I have to help my clients live my life, and I really need to ground my spirituality, because guess what, folks? If you're listening to this, you probably are in a body, I'm assuming. I mean, maybe not, but most of us listening to this or speaking on this are in a body. We live on Earth. We have to pay the bills. We have children to raise, we have a culture to live in, and all of these things. So grounding that knowledge is so important. And your website is veronicadrake.com, right? Drake.
Yep, Drake. Nice.
So definitely check that out, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. So depending upon your however you're accessing this podcast, you should be able to find that. But you can, if you type in veronicadrake.com.
I'm Googleable.
Googleable. That's a good word. I like that. Google. That's hard to say, but it's a fun word to say.
Googleable. It's on my business card. I'm Googleable. No.
Google me. If you had said that 20 years ago, Google me, somebody would think you were saying something perverted. But
kind of a cool word, though, right? Google.
It is. Yeah. I mean, I knew it from being a nerd because it's a math term. It's a 1 with 100 zeros behind it. Is a Google. That's where that term came from.
Yeah, I just learned something.
Yeah, it's a nerdy math term, which is why the people who founded Google are all mathematicians and nerdy folks like myself, or actually probably more so than myself. And I don't mean nerd in a pejorative way. It's nowadays nerd is actually a compliment. So it just means you're incredibly smart and. Lots of math going on there, but let me Google you is such an interesting turn of phrase. Anyway,
listen, I have a ton of personality. I have no math skills, but I have a ton of personality.
We all have our gifts, and personality is a gift. Well, look, we are at the top of the hour, and I feel like we could talk for 2 or 3 more hours. I hope that you will come on again. I know you are a very busy person. It looks like you're doing about 30 million different things. And you've got this Psychic Development Academy coming up in September. I will be sure to check it out. Do you have a newsletter or something people can subscribe to if they go to your site and social media? And all that
you
stuff?
Should ask.
Okay.
I was just sitting at my desk right before we got on here writing the newsletter. So that will be going on.
So so for me, if I know, like with my ADD, if something's coming up in September, I'm gonna have to sign up for your newsletter or something like that as a reminder. So people do that, because I know how these things go. You're like, I'm interested in this thing. I'm really down with that. And then it's a couple months away, depending on when you listen to this. So definitely give a subscribe, and I'm sure you've got social media and
oh yeah, Googleable.
Googleable. And we all have that stuff these days. It's how I found my teacher online using the shamanic tool called Google. But Veronica, it's been just what a wonderful conversation I have had with you this morning. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insight and all about, maybe not all about, but at least some about mediumship and what makes psychicism, is that the right term? Being a psychic and being a medium different?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to. I'm not always great with words.
You're You're a very gracious host, though. I will
Oh.
say that. You're a very gracious host, and I would be honored to come back.
Awesome. Well, we'll be in touch, and we will definitely have you back on. Maybe we can get you in like closer to September too, and
Sure.
really dive into the your academy as well a little bit more. But thank you so much for coming on, and thank you folks for tuning in. And I hope you're happy, healthy, and well. And we will talk to you real soon.
You have been listening to Speaking Spirit with your host, John Moore. For more info or to contact John, go to mainshaman.com. That's maineshaman.com.